Welcome back to another episode of Gritty Iron Gang. Week 8 is in the books. The Las Vegas Raiders traveled to Detroit to face the Lions. Game pretty much went the way we thought it would. Detroit handled the Las Vegas Raiders. I thought they could have played a little bit better, but they got away with the victory at the end of the day. What did you think about this game on Monday night?
I thought it was just another ugly outing for two NFL teams. It wasn't a pretty game by any means. I think even with how bad the Raiders have been and even how poorly they played this game, they still had a shot at times to come away with this against the Lions. And
Yeah.
it makes me a little worried about the Lions. I think they have a lot to prove still to truly be like a feared contender. But they are proving that they are a team to beat, obviously. The record shows it. They're the number 2 seed in the NFC right now. They're having a great season, but I do think it's a very good sign that Jahmyr Gibbs finally got going and had himself a game, because I think this is he's gonna have to be a focal point going forward at some point because he's so dynamic. But it'll bode well even more when Montgomery gets back and they can feed off each other. And I think that will be a problem for defenses going forward as well. But, and then, obviously they traded for Peoples-Jones from the Browns. So they got a little bit of another weapon, even though he's not great, but he's not bad. He can get some things done. But so another guy for Jared Goff. I would have liked, obviously we could talk more about the trades before we make our picks, but I would have liked Detroit really to make a move or two for the defensive side. I think if they could have shored some things up over there, that would have made me feel even more confident about them going forward. But I still think, they're still a little bit of I'm going to call them like a younger team that's still on the come up. So I think they're about a year or two off still from making some serious noise and being on that top 5, top 10 ranking list consistently.
Yeah, I agree. I think that move you mentioned is kind of an example of that. You saw the big dogs kind of go out these past couple weeks. Like you said, we can talk about it later, but Chase Young going to the 49ers, Kevin Byard going to the Eagles. They went and got real impactful players, whereas Donovan Peoples-Jones is a good receiver, but especially on a team like Detroit, how is he really going to be utilized? How is he going to fit into that depth chart? So it's just kind of like a little brother move, and you can see the difference between like the real big dogs and the team that's on the up and coming.
Yeah.
As far as Vegas goes, I mean, probably should have been a seller at the deadline. Pretty bad team. Garoppolo, we've said it 100 times. If he's your answer, you need to start asking some new questions. He's going to get benched going into week 9. The young boy, Aiden O'Connell, I think is his name.
Yep.
He's going to get the go-ahead at quarterback for the Vegas Raiders. Not sure how it's going to look. He had a decent preseason. He's got some time in the regular season so far. Hasn't looked that great, but maybe getting the start going forward. He has a new confidence boost, whole week to prepare, whatnot, the whole spiel. But I don't have any kind of faith in this Vegas team going in this Vegas team going forward at all. But like you said, Detroit, I kind of felt the same way. They had a chance to really put their foot on the throats of Vegas, make a statement, put the league on notice, and they didn't do it. So still have my questions about them. But I do like they were trying to make some moves at the deadline, even though they weren't big moves or splashy moves.
Yeah. And on the Raiders topic real quick, it's like obviously we saw early morning hours today that Mark Davis fired the general manager and Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
And I don't know much about the interim GM, but I think it's pretty cool that Antonio Pierce is getting a shot at a head coaching gig right now. Obviously, it's just an audition, and I would not expect him to probably land that permanently, because number one, when do guys who step into that role ever land it permanently? Right. And number two, I hate to bring this up, but he's one of those minority guys that keep getting will blackball list type shit.
Yeah.
But I think it's cool that he's stepping in and getting a shot. And I think my his first big move stepping in as head coach, he fired the OC right off the bat, and that I like that move right away, because I think that lets the team know, hey, I know shit's not going well. We all see it. We all feel it. this has been a disaster of a season, and he's going to put his little spin on it now. And I think the players are going to buy in and play for him the rest of the way. So I think they're going to scratch and claw to get a few decent wins the rest of the way, but they're still not that type of team to fear by any means. And then the fact that he benches Jimmy G for Aiden O'Connell, that's also another good move because it lets people know, like, hey, Jimmy G's been dog shit, and we all know it. And this was just him keeping that QB1 spot was merely because Josh McDaniels was there. So, and I do think Aiden O'Connell gives them a better opportunity. While he's still raw, he gives them a much better opportunity to spread the ball around and make better plays for this team going forward. So I really appreciate and like what Antonio Pierce did with his first couple of moves as head coach today.
Yeah, no question about it. I hate when guys get the big deal and you feel like you have to start them just because they got that contract.
Yep.
Jimmy's not the guy. Aiden O'Connell, I'm not saying he was the answer either. I understand you probably want to go with the veteran guy to pair with Devonta Adams and the crew, but I'm kind of excited to see what this guy can do with these weapons he has out there in Vegas.
Yeah.
Before we get to our Week 9 picks, it was the trade deadline this week. Not a big one, not a lot of splashy moves, but do you have a few moves in mind that you want to speak about?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off with Josh Dobbs coming to Minnesota. Also involved the late round pick swap, which was pretty much them just giving Dobbs to us. Obviously, they were benching him because Kyler's coming back, and they got this I don't know his name, Tune or whatever, to back up. So obviously Dobbs is a journeyman. He's got a 1-9 record as a starter. This is his third team now in the last 2 months. Went from Browns to Arizona and now to Vikings. But I think this is more so the Vikings just kind of bringing in another guy because after Jaren Hall, we got Nick Mullins, but he's on IR. Is not scheduled to come off IR until the 12th or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't know how he's going to look when he comes off IR. So you had to bring in a guy just because of depth reasons. So I don't mind it being Dobbs because it keeps the options open going forward for that position into the offseason, and doesn't break the bank. But I do think this is obviously going to be the Jaren Hall show going forward. He knows the system. He knows the playbook more than anyone. So until he falters, that would be obviously the time that you put Dobbs in. And, he's nothing special, but I'm intrigued because of what he was able to do in Arizona first 8 games and to make them somewhat competitive compared to what we were saying about them going into the season. So it's not a bad move in my mind. I think it's a solid move. Nothing splashing. It's just another quality depth piece, obviously. So I give Kwesi and KOC credit for obviously doing that and going to make that move. Because look, I was always saying you don't need to go out and trade for a guy like Tannehill or Jameis Winston or some of these other vets who are backups or being benched because number one, we're 8 weeks into the season now. They're not going to come in and have a grasp on this playbook that's pretty complex for obviously KOC that what he runs. It's going to take some time for them to get up to speed and really have a grasp on the offense and be able to, spread the ball around to the playmakers that we have on the roster. So that would have been, that to me would have been more of a disaster move because that it would have just spiraled out of control. We wouldn't have been able to compete. We wouldn't have been able to have the cohesiveness or the camaraderie because look, this team is gelling right now. Obviously, Kirk Cousins is a huge blow to that, but this team has been gelling and getting their shit together. So I think if you go out and do that and try to just, makes me think of like when Teddy went down and you bring in Sam Bradford. You don't need to go out and make those type of deals and sacrifice future assets just because you're in the running for the season. We're still 4-4. We're not a Super Bowl team, so you don't need to go out there and dig yourself a hole and having contractual obligations to these veteran guys that honestly hardly anybody wants at this point.
I agree. I like the move of Dobbs. I agree with you. I think you're going to go with Hall for this first week. but that's going to be the make or break week for all. I do think you still are a playoff contender, even though you're not a Super Bowl contender. Dobbs, as of late, hasn't played well, but to start the season, he was taking very good care of the ball. Once James Conner went down, he started to struggle a little bit more. You do
Yeah.
have a better running back room, and you do have better weapons surrounding him offensively with a better offensive line. So I think either of these quarterbacks, as long as they're competent, you guys shouldn't be should have missed a beat, honestly. I mean, Kirk was playing like a top 5 quarterback, so you're obviously not going to be as dynamic as you were,
Right.
but offensively, you should still be able to get the job done.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. I think the biggest thing is obviously going forward is to keep this defense rolling because they're really coming on, and I think the past 3-4 games they're top 10 defensively in statistics. So I think you just keep having them gel, and they're gonna have to be the backbone of this team going forward and keeping us in games because, like you said, as long as the quarterback is competent, we're gonna be fighting for that 7th seed, obviously. Um, and that's what we're going to be fighting for at most. I mean, other than that, if shit goes south, it goes south. Like I said before, I'm not holding out hope for anything big this rest of the season, but it's just kind of it's nice to see your GM and head coach just not like throwing in the towel on this season because Kurt goes down. And it's also a nice seeing that they're not jeopardizing future assets because you took this massive blow. Because when you get GMs and head coaches that hit the panic button when shit like this happens to a star player, that's when you really start to see what type of leadership you have, and that's not a good sign. So I'm pleased with the overall moves we've made. Over the deadline and just not panicking and just saying, okay, we're going to keep this thing rolling as best we can. You know, we got to deal with adversity. And I think that will only make this team stronger going forward into the future.
My first guy is kind of a cheap pick. It wasn't a deadline pick, but I think it was a very important move. Kevin Byard to Philly. We've touched
Yep.
on it briefly this episode and last week. Last year defensively, Philly was 8th in points, 2nd in yards with the 3rd best turnover ratio in the league. So far this year, 19th in points, 8th in yards with the 24th worst turnover ratio in the league. So I think this is just another move. This team adding depth, adding playmakers. I love the move. I love that they're going all in again like they did last season. And that's pretty much my spiel on this Eagles team and that Kevin Byard move right there. Keep it nice, short, sweet, and simple.
Yeah, I think I'll combine my next one. I'll combine my next two into one pretty much, piggyback off of them. So obviously the Chase Young gets traded to the 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you know, the Niners, they love bringing in top end quality players, especially amongst that defense. And I think obviously he's paired up now with his college teammate in Nick Bosa. I think it's going to be a solid move for that defense, but I can't say it's it makes them any better because they've already have a top end roster. They got a great defense, and I'm not saying they should have traded for quarterback, but defense was not your issue right now. So it's kind of one of those moves that's just a complete wash because while he will be a playmaker for you and a difference maker in a sense, it's not going to catapult you into a Super Bowl trophy. So
Defense kind of was the issue. It just wasn't the defensive line
right.
kind of thing. They're going all in on the D line, almost similar to the New York Giants did back in the day with OC and those boys, Justin Tuck, because they know their defensive backfield is a weakness right now. They have the one safety back there that's a playmaker. Outside of that, nobody back there can really do anything for you. So maybe they're just relying on, we have 3 great pass rushers. You only have so many blockers. Somebody's going to get the one-on-one.
Right.
I mean, but I love the move. I mean, more playmakers, the more superstar caliber players you can have on the team, the better. And
Right.
they have cap room. They could have added another one. So I'm surprised
Yeah.
that a team like the San Francisco 49ers weren't in the news again outside of that Chase Young news.
Yeah, and I definitely like the move. It's just, I think the also other thing is that they've been where they're faltering a little bit. I'm not going to put it more so on the players necessarily. Obviously, to some degree, it is on the players because they're the ones who go out there and compete and make plays.
Mm-hmm.
But you go from Robert Saleh being your DC and then to D'Amico Ryans being your DC. And then I think you took a huge step back with Steve Wilkes. While he's a quality coach, he doesn't compare to those two DCs. And he has had a lot of weaknesses in his scheming and play calling this year. So I can't just put it strictly on the defensive players per se, because while I do think some fault needs to be had on Steve Wilkes for their performances. So especially the last 3 weeks.
Fair. You had another guy
Um,
you said?
yeah, and then my other guy is big time D lineman going from the Giants to the Seahawks and Leonard Williams. Look, to me, this was my favorite move by far. I think Seattle is in the running. They're leading the West right now. They have a good possibility to win that division. And I just think this bolsters their defense even more, especially in the trenches. I mean, look, games are won to me in the trenches, up front. So it all starts up front, and I think I think it's going to be a move that re-energizes him and rejuvenates him, because when you're going from a disaster of a place like the New York Giants to a 5-3, 6-2. I don't know the record off the top of my head, but Seattle, I think what are they 6-2 or 5-3?
5-2.
5-2. So okay, yeah. But going from that situation to Seattle situation, I think he's going to be a big time difference maker for that defense, and it's going to even boost that young defensive secondary. So I think Seattle's a team to really watch out for down the stretch because of this.
I have a guy who I think will boost the defense a little bit as well, but I don't quite understand the move. Montez Sweat going to the Chicago Bears. Bears are a team in contention for 2 top 10 picks. Montez, along with Chase Young, were 2 guys in Washington that didn't really get the job done, which is why they were moved. But I think they can both still play. For the Bears to make this win now move when you're in no position to win, it's kind of crazy to me. When you pick a guy, or when you take a guy when you could desperately use that pick in the draft next year, is pretty interesting to me. And he's not even under contract, so if it doesn't work out, he's just going to walk out the door. So although I do like this guy and I think he is beneficial for this team, so much so that when Justin Fields gets back,
Does
this team will
nothing.
be in contention. And I think he may make a sack here, a sack fumble, win you a game or two at the end of the game, maybe knock down that draft pick. I don't know, man. I just don't really like this move at all for Chicago. This is a terrible organization. If it wasn't for the Raiders, they'd be right there in that conversation for number 1 place you don't want to be.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I am so happy we dodged the bullet with not hiring Ryan Poles. I think everything he's done for Chicago so far is
It's been awful, bro.
been terrible, and I have no idea what he's doing. I mean, obviously he shipped out. He first got there, and I think his first move he shipped out Khalil Mack to L.A.
Yeah.
and then he ships out Roquan to Baltimore. He was just about to ship out their now best defensive player in Jalen Johnson, but that didn't happen. But I think that relationship is now done for.
It's over.
And then you bring in a guy like Montez Sweat. Like, what does that do? Like, it just makes no sense to me. Like,
0 sense at all.
it's just, it doesn't. Yeah, I'll leave it at that because I don't understand it.
All right, I'm glad we're on the same page with that because I saw that and I'm like, Montez can play, but then I looked at it deeper.
And
It
I
didn't make
don't
sense at
think.
all to me.
And the other thing that sucks about it is for the Chicago and their fans is I think Montez knows like he's going to try to get out of there as fast as possible.
Oh, he's gonna sprain his ankle in 3 weeks and just sit out for the last 2 months. He knows. He knows. Let's get to week 9. Do you have the records on hand for last week by chance?
Good thing you remember because I was just about to space off on that. Week 8 picks. The results were you went 10-6. I went 12-4.
Oh, damn.
So
not bad, sir.
That puts us at 72-49 for the season for you, and 74-47 on the season for me. So I gained another 2 games back after we tied up. I think what did you win though? I mean, it still would have been it still would have been a game lead afterwards, but I don't know what you're doing picking the Bears though.
The Bears. Staley. Can't trust Staley, man. Let's get to it. Week 9, Thursday Night Football. We have the Tennessee Titans on the road facing the Pittsburgh Steelers. 2 teams that we last week mentioned, both going to have to play ugly and win ugly. And I think Pittsburgh, they're going to be able to neutralize some of that new Will Levis tape that they saw last week. 4 touchdowns is going to be out of the realm of possibility against Mike Tomlin and the boys. TJ Watt's going to have a big game against that struggling offensive line. Pittsburgh's going to get back on track after that loss in week 8. Hate to say it.
Good, because I'm going with Tennessee and that new guy in Will Levis. I think I just look. I've been saying it. I think this is the year that Mike Tomlin falls below 500 for the first time. While I'm not high on either team, especially I can never trust Tennessee, but I really liked what I saw out of Will Levis last week, and I think that only rejuvenates a disgruntled D Hop. I think it gets Derrick Henry going a little bit. I think that the whole team, as a whole, sees that they have something in Will Levis compared to Ryan Tannehill, who's just kind of, ho hum and, doesn't get things going. So they got a guy who's going to fire up the team and be a better leader than Ryan Tannehill, in my opinion. And I think, I'll pick Will Levis right now over Kenny Pickett as much as I've seen out of Kenny Pickett. So, look, I just don't trust Look, I can't trust that Pittsburgh offense for the life of me.
It might be Trubisky, now that I think about it.
And still, that does nothing for me. So, while this is a tough game to pick just because both teams are kind of blah, I got to roll with the new dude at least for 1 week, because until he truly fizzles, I'm going to roll with him, because I think that he was a stud at Kentucky, and I think he's got some juice to him. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that last week was not a fluke. Obviously, 4 touchdown performance is probably not in the cards, because that is a tough feat for anyone at quarterback in the NFL. But I think it's a great, starting point for him, and it only boosts his confidence going forward. So give me the Tennessee Titans.
It was a great starting point. You look at the numbers on paper, they look phenomenal. You watch the tape, the tape didn't lie to you. His throws he was making, they were on point. His deep ball looked good. You know how I feel about D-Hop. I think he's still a top 10 guy in this league. That's one hell of a weapon to have when you're throwing in there. I mean, Pittsburgh's a tough team to play, but I'll do exactly what I did in week 8. Throw a deep 15 times.
I'm gonna look. If I'm Will Levis, I'm saying D-Hop, just raise your hand, because you're gonna cook P2. You're gonna cook P2 all night.
I think Minka's out this game too, so okay. I still got Pittsburgh though. I ain't gonna waver. 8:30 in the morning, Sunday, bright and early. It might be dark where you are. Miami at Kansas City. A battle of 2 6-2 teams in the AFC, potentially the 2 best teams in the AFC, unless Baltimore or Jacksonville has something to say about it. How do you feel about this one? Which way do you think it's going to go?
Well, it's one of those overseas games, bright and early, so I think that throws a wrench in how they truly perform. Obviously, they could prove me wrong, but I think that the overall speed and just dynamic ability of that Miami offense is going to cause Kansas City's defense a lot of fits. And I just don't think this Kansas City offense can keep up with Miami. So I'm going to roll with Miami in this one, even though I hate going against Pat Mahomes, but I truly do think that while I think that Patty Mahomes, his flu kind of played a role in how abysmal they were in Denver, they'll rebound for sure. But I just don't think that Casey has the weapons or anything to keep up with Tyreek and them over there.
I don't know if it's ever happened, but I think Patty's about to lose 2 games in a row. Miami, they look good, like you said. KC, we usually don't know how teams are going to keep up with them, but this year I don't know how they're going to keep up with Miami. They can be sleeping and score 30 points a game. They got Jalen Ramsey back last week. He had an interception in his return. I think they get Howard back this week as well, so that defensive backfield is going to be prime and ready to go. Tough game. I think Miami even left Monday to go overseas, and KC's leaving either tomorrow or tonight or something, so Miami has a head start on that. I'm going to have to go with the Dolphins in this one. Seattle Seahawks at the Baltimore Ravens. Keep it short and sweet. I'll go Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm. If it was in Seattle, I'd have to him haw a little bit more, obviously, because I think Seattle is a much better home team than a away team, and for that reason, I'm going Baltimore in this one. I think Baltimore is just probably the absolute most physical team in the NFL right now, and I just don't think Seattle can do anything to, you know, overcome that.
Seattle's just kind of middle of the pack offensively and defensively. Baltimore's defense is top 2 in the league, so I think we'll be able to neutralize DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and the guys over there. Their defense, they have some playmakers, so I'm a little worried about us and our
Well,
carelessness with the ball, but
that's
I
what
think we'll
worries
be
me
able to
about
take care of Seattle.
That's what worries me about Baltimore. The only thing is just that I think your offense keeps teams in these games more, obviously more so than your
Yeah,
defense,
for
because
sure.
you can make some boneheaded mistakes. You turn the ball over sometimes, and then that causes your defense to be on the field longer than they should be.
Yeah, easy 3-and-outs. Y'all got to tell me. Is Leonard Williams going to play this week? Because that might be scary.
I wouldn't be surprised if he got some snaps, but I think he needs more than a week of preparation to. Obviously, D line is kind of, you just throw them out there and they just go.
Mm-hmm.
But
Am I going A gap or B gap?
yeah, so I mean, while I think he could get some run, I don't think he's gonna be a full time starter, player this week. I think that will be more so next week.
Vikes at the Falcons. It's on you.
Look, man, obviously, I would love to pick the Vikings. I think if Kirk's in there, I'm rolling with them 100%. But obviously, Atlanta's defense is, the top 10 unit. They've been playing well. And obviously, they're starting Tyler Heineke. I think our defense is definitely going to give him fits. I think that this is going to be a close game. It's going to come down to the wire. But I got to go Atlanta because until I see it from Jaren Hall in this offense, I can't pick them. So until they can show me something this week, that's what I'm doing. As I'm leaning the other way.
I kind of feel that way too. But if I saw Desmond Ritter was starting, I probably would have went with the Vikings. I do have a lot more faith in Heineke, and I do feel like it will come down to a kick. And I've seen Greg Joseph do
Yeah,
Vikings
not
things
good.
at the kicker position this year, and Young
Not
Hook, who
good.
has won a couple games for Atlanta. So I'm going to have to take Atlanta as well. I think Bijan's going to have a breakout game. They haven't been really utilizing him a lot. And I think it would just be so funny if Kyle Pitts has fucking
Well, and that's the
150
thing is the
touchdowns.
biggest thing is for our defense to neutralize Bijan this game because I think it's pointing to Drake London being out. So then that takes one
Mm-hmm.
big playmaker away. Obviously, you got Kyle Pitts still, but we know the overall track record is they don't go his way a whole lot. But that could change with Taylor Heineke big time, because
Why wouldn't it?
he finds his playmakers. Obviously, you saw that in Washington. So, but yeah, I just got to go Atlanta until I can see it and start to feel a little comfortable with this offense and Jaren Hall and whatever. I can't just go out of my way picking Minnesota because that's a huge loss.
It is. Arizona at Cleveland. We might see PJ Walker against Tooney here.
Just for the sole reason of Cleveland's defense, I'm going Cleveland.
You kind of have to. I think it'll be, as it is every week, a closer game than we expect, though.
But I am hearing that Kyler could start, so if he does, that'll be interesting. But I'm not obviously I'm not a Kyler guy, so
I'm not throwing this little ass out there against Myles Garrett. What I look like. Tampa Bay at Houston, one of the more interesting games of the week, if you ask me. Tampa, one of those feisty teams, a little bit more talented than an Arizona or a Rams, in my opinion. Houston probably fumbled the bag last week in that loss to Carolina, dropping to 3-4 on the season, coming off their bye week. I do think they will bounce back this week, though, and beat Tampa Bay at home.
I got Houston as well. I think that loss left a bad taste in their mouth. I think D'Amico and CJ are good enough leaders to get this team back on track. And look, Baker does Baker things. So I'm
No
not
question
gonna.
about it.
I don't have much faith in him. Obviously, he's having a better year than previous years, but I do like this up and coming Houston team, and I do think they can get the job done against Tampa Bay.
Bears at the Saints. I don't have a lot to say here.
New
Saints
Orleans,
are going to come marching in.
New Orleans.
LA Rams at Green Bay. Probably a more
Rams.
interesting game for different reasons. You said the Rams.
Well, I'm jumping the gun a little bit because I think if Matt Stafford's out, that changes things.
He can
Um,
be.
so I'm basing it off of that he's going to give it a go, and in that case, I'm picking Stafford over Jordan Love because what I've seen out of Jordan Love, this dude can't win a fucking thing unless he's playing the Bears.
If Stafford isn't able to go and you see Brett Ripon, what's your pick then?
I would, I'd have to lean a little more Green Bay, but for the fact that I'm a Packer hater, I'm still going
You're going
Rams.
Rams either way. I think I am too. Even if Jordan Love is a little better than what Brett Ripon is going to be, I think he has weapons over there in LA that he just doesn't have in Green Bay.
Well,
So
and that's the thing is this: you watch this Packers offense week to week, and since the first couple weeks, they've gotten worse every week.
yeah, they're
They
looking
can't
bad.
they can't sustain drives. They can't. I mean, I think during the Vikings game, they went the whole first half without a first down. So,
There was
like,
a couple teams like that last week.
I
Like
mean,
it's
and
bad.
for Jordan Love to be the so-called guy, and future of Green Bay, not a good look. And I just think that slowly by the weeks that everyone there is losing faith in him. And I think this whole team is disgruntled at this point. So they don't have much to play for.
In the show me now business, it's kind of tough, man. But he's had 3 years to develop. He should look way better than what he looks right now.
Yep.
Our last noon game, we have Washington at New England. New England, also another offense that looks worse and worse each week. So I'm going to have to go with the Commanders in this one.
Same here. I just can't do New England anymore, man. I just, and you know what's going to happen is McDaniels will probably be hired by year's end. So, I mean, he is going to be crawling back to daddy.
Daddy wasn't there. No, he is. He'll be all right. Maybe he'll get the job in 10 years when Bill decides to hang it up. Indianapolis at Carolina. Carolina coming after a big win. Indianapolis giving up 38 points to the Saints. Pretty embarrassing loss. Is Carolina going to keep it going? What do you think?
I've been thinking about this one a lot because it's an interesting game to me. Obviously, you're riding some momentum with the win, first win of the season, especially. You got some guys feeling good, feeling themselves a little bit, not having that zero hang over your head. But I think Minshew plays a pretty good game this week. I think that they correct some things. I think that he gets in a groove and leads this Indy team to a solid win.
I agree. He either plays good or he plays bad, and it's usually every other game. He didn't play that well last week. I think he'll bounce back this week. But for that reason, that's why he's probably going to be a career backup. New York Giants at the Las Vegas Raiders. We might see Tommy DeVito against Aiden O'Connell in this
Look,
quarterback
look.
matchup in the National Professional Football League.
Here's what I'm doing, bro. I'm going Raiders in this one because you get Antonio Pierce in there, get rallying these boys up. You fired your OC. You named Aiden O'Connell your starting quarterback. These boys are going to be ready to go, and I think we see a lot more Devontae Adams.
Please, God, we need to see more Devontae Adams. I got to go Raiders, too. Tyrod Taylor was my last hope for this team. Without him, I don't even know anything about this DeVito guy. Isn't this like a movie character or a TV show character or something?
Danny DeVito.
That could be what I'm. Maybe Sopranos or something. I don't know, but
Always sunny in Philadelphia.
maybe yeah, something. That's a great show. Speaking of Philadelphia, it will be sunny when they take on Dallas this Sunday. How you feel
You
about
know
this
how I'm
one?
rocking.
Because I got Philly all day.
You know how I'm rocking, bro.
Philly
Dak ain't
Dilly.
seeing Dak ain't seeing Jalen Hurts out there, bro. Look, I think the way Philly's been playing this year, bro. I just all I hope for is a complete domination of Dallas. I think that Philly's capable of doing it, and I think that they're gonna put their foots on their fucking throats and dominate this game.
I'm looking for a 35-13 type of game here. Buffalo at Cincinnati, Sunday Night Football. How are we feeling about this one? I think Cincinnati's going to keep it going, personally.
Dude, the way Burrow's been playing, the way Cincinnati's feeling themselves, bro, they're back, like I said, and they're gonna give Buffalo all sorts of fits. So I think Cincinnati is gonna. I think this is the game that everyone's gonna be like, Cincinnati
They'll
is
be
definitely
convinced.
back. So
This will be a huge game for Buffalo from Baltimore's perspective if they can knock down Cincinnati. One more game in the loss column just for later in the season because we know they're going to be there. We might actually see 4 AFC North teams in the playoffs. Far stretch, but we definitely have the best division in football. To wrap up this week, we have the Los Angeles Chargers on the road at the New York Jets. How we feeling about this one?
This is a tough one for me. I think
Me too.
I've been going both back and forth, but I think I keep asking myself how do the Jets keep winning? And I think that comes to an end this week. I'm taking Justin Herbert and the Chargers.
Well, even though the Jets have a bonehead coach, they keep winning because that defense is great. Even though the quarterback is suspect, they can win because they have playmakers that can make plays at the right time. Chargers, you have a bad coach. You have a quarterback who has yet to prove that he's clutch. I'm going to go with the Jets in this game.
Good. We needed another difference
We
in the
needed another
game.
one. If you
So
didn't hear your team, you're on bye. So rest up. We'll see you in week 10.
look, this obviously this game is again. These are two teams that it could go either way. I mean, obviously, I like the Jets defense more. I mean, I don't know. I think the biggest thing if the Chargers can really utilize Eckler a little more in the past game, it's going to give some headaches to that Jets defense. But overall, it just comes down to I'm picking Herbert over Zach Wilson to get the job done.
I mean, last week was a nice little tune-up game, primetime game against the Chicago Bears. So you get your feet wet, primetime a little bit. Now here's the real test against the Jets defense, who's actually an NFL
Now,
defense. So
now I
let's
think
see what it's capable of.
if the Jets do win this game, they'll be 5-3,
Yep,
have won 4 in a row.
yep.
And I think the talks of A-Rod coming back sooner rather than later are going to start.
I mean, at this rate, Rodgers is probably going to be doing cartwheels before the game.
Yeah, so
So I mean, he'll be back by
it'll
Christmas.
definitely the talk will definitely be ramping up, and I think being 5-3 and having your sights set on a wild card spot. Look, if they get in the playoffs and A-Rod comes back for the playoffs, bro, holy shit!
Holy shit is right. That's scary hours because we're talking about the AFC right now as the 4 teams and then potentially like Cincinnati. We're not even talking about them right now. And they might have the scariest defense outside of Baltimore. If they have Rodgers, they'll have the best quarterback outside of Patrick Mahomes. I mean, golly. This is what we expected at the beginning of the season. But once he got hurt, that's why that week 1 win against Buffalo was so huge. Not only was it a win with the
Right,
quarterback going down, it was in the conference, it was in the division. So huge, huge win. And it gives you guys confidence going forward. If you
right,
lose that one and
exactly.
next week you're 0-2, then it's like,
Yep,
damn, we don't got Rodgers. Like Wilson still sucks ass. I give up, you know.
yep.
But like you said, they can be 5-3, which I think they will be because Staley is terrible. And the talk around town is going to be different. Anything on week 9? Are we good here?
I think we've covered everything, honestly. I mean, this is going to be an interesting week, obviously, for playoff implications. You're going to have to, eyes are going to be on the Vikings because right now they're currently locked up with the 7th seed.
Huge game for playoff implications against the
Yeah.
Falcons.
I think if the Vikings come away with a win in this one, it just kind of they'll be 5-4. Then they'll have the Saints next week, and I think they win this one. It's just gonna give so much confidence to that quarterback and Jaren Hall and this team going forward, and possibly next week you get JJ back, and it's like holy. Obviously, I'm not gonna say Jaren Hall is the answer; he's the future or whatever. But it's like you
Case
get that
Keenum
first win under
2.0.
your belt. You get that first win under your belt. You get a lot of confidence.
You start getting jewelry around your neck on the plane home. Whatever Kirk was doing on the plane, whatever. That dude is funny, man. I hope Kirk can be back for next season. He don't deserve to go out like that.
Nah, bro.
Vikings, yeah, I think y'all will have a real chance next year too if you make the right move. So
Yeah, I do too. It's a pivotal offseason. I've said it all along. This year is a pivotal offseason. I think this is going to be one of the more fun off seasons we've had compared to last year. The draft, I think, is going to be more fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the off season episodes because there's going to be a lot to talk about.
No question. That's it for me, though. You good?
I'm good. I'm good.
All right, bro. Until next time.